Hey, what's up everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems and welcome to Track Walk episode 96 in MX Simulator, where today we are taking a look at a 2013 version of the Maggiora Motocross Park in Maggiora, Italy, where this weekend the 70th running of the FIM Motocross of Nations will be taking place, and there's a few newer versions of this track available on the forums, but this is probably the best rendition of it, even though it might be a little bit wrong from the track that we'll see the running of that race this weekend on. But I like this one a lot better than those other two versions, so I decided I'd play this if I'm going to do a track walk where I'm talking about said Motocross of Nations. So I'll also point out a few locations on this track where the track now goes, I guess, in like a different direction. Pretty much it's all almost the same thing, except for a few kind of kinks here and there. After this tabletop, for example, it kind of goes left before the single and then hooks back right and goes up the right up this hill here, and then it turns around, and then there's a rhythm section that comes down this hill into this U-turn instead. So that's one little minor change. It's not huge different, and then this is all the same right here. So you turn around and then there's this little famous hip jump. Everybody gets cool photos on that. And then it comes down this thing, and then you do not want to go to the left there, but you go over the top of this hill now. It's a step up. You downside this and then go straight on from this corner into the back over there, and there's a triple step up, and then it kind of turns up to the left up here, turns again, and then there's a little tabletop drop down thing right here, and then this tabletop back into the main part of the track is a little bit bigger than that, but pretty much everything else is about the same. There's a wall jump right here now, and then instead of a chicane, it actually just goes left, and then there's a tabletop right here, and then it comes back onto the start straight. It has a little bit of like a chicane back onto the start straight now too, so that's a little bit different. Most of this track is pretty much the same, and as I said, this is the best version of the track in the game, so wanted to play it. And last year I did track walk, I think it was episode 44 or 45, on a track in France, which I cannot remember the name of, but Ernée was not built yet, so I did just a different track in France that was about as close as I could find to an Ernée track, and talked about the Motocross of Nations. So this year I actually get the chance to talk about the Motocross of Nations while we're riding the track that they'll be riding this weekend, which I think is pretty cool. That's one thing that I've always really enjoyed about MX Simulators, that there's so many different tracks and things available to play that it's pretty easy to find ways to do the same things that are happening in real life. Like, I'm sure when the Monster Cup comes around in a few weeks, there'll also be a track that replicates that in this game. So it's just really neat to be able to play the stuff that you get to see on TV that week or whatever. But to the point of the 2016 Motocross of Nations in Italy, I'm super pumped, as I always am. My favorite race of the year is back. I always am very avid at waking up early and watching these races, whether I work them or not. I did used to wake up before I worked for Verb back in the day and watch these races early in the morning. And that's how I kind of started getting into the GP scene. I used to just watch the Motocross of Nations for the sake and point of cheering for Team USA. And then I started getting more interested in the other riders that were over in the GP scene. And then I got hooked on the GP scene, and now I'm a big old GP nut, as everybody likes to call me. But I love the Motocross of Nations. I definitely think it's the biggest event of the year. Some people will argue that Anaheim 1 is bigger just because of the hype around it. I would say that Monster Cup is even probably bigger than Anaheim 1 because it really puts everybody together, and when there's $1 million on the line, it's a lot more at stake, so it's kind of a bigger event for those guys. And then there's not really any like particular national that stands out. Redbud's always a big deal every year because it falls on the 4th of July weekend, but I definitely still say that this tops them all, the Motocross of Nations every year. Because, I mean, what other race is there out there right now that you get to put a team together that represents a country and then go try to win the Motocross of Nations for your country? That's pretty cool. So I'm always stoked when this comes around, and I always do cheer for the USA when this comes around, as opposed to popular belief A lot of my friends that know me pretty well know that I like to really cheer on the GP guys, maybe a little bit more of like a GP fan than an AMA fan. So when Roxon and Muscan came over, I was all about it, and I'm still a big fan of both of those guys. So believe it or not, I do actually root for USA when this race comes around. I'm pretty unbiased when it comes to reporting on the event. Obviously, for Verb's sake, we're an American-based company, so the American fans want to know a lot more about what Team USA is doing than other teams, but I do try to cover all the bases when I cover it. But yeah, definitely rooting for Team USA again this weekend. I think the team is pretty good. Cooper Webb, Amart, and Jason Anderson could be a lot better. Could be, let's just say, Dungey, Tomac, and Webb on a 250, for example. But obviously with Dungey being hurt and Tomac being more or less forced to race the USGPs under strict orders from Monster Energy, he decided he was a little bit too worn out from the season and wanted to skip these rounds, which, you know, it's his decision. He can do that. I'm not going to change my opinion on Tomac just because of that decision in any shape or form. When the Motocross of Nations comes around, he has every right to pick and choose if he wants to go or not. And anybody that's going to be in a massive uproar that Tomac didn't go, might I remind you that Ricky Carmichael had a very lengthy career in the United States, racing many seasons on a big bike when it was the 250 class and then eventually the 450 class. And I think he only elected to go to the Motocross of Nations twice in his entire career. So that gives you an idea that, you know, Tomac's decision isn't necessarily the first case of its kind. Carmichael often chose not to go. Usually it was because the team wasn't going to be awesome or anything like that, but when a team that was going to be really good was fielded, he'd tend to go. But I don't think Tomac's decision is completely out of line or anything like that, and it's his decision, so that's all I'm going to say about that. But the team that is going, I think, is capable of winning. Whether they will win or not, I don't know. I don't think that they're necessarily the favorites. If I'm going to pick a favorite team for this weekend, I'd have to say it's still France, coming off of the two-time defending champion victories that they got when they won in Latvia and then last year in France. And they have two of the three riders that were on the team last year with Gauthier Paulin and Roman Febvre. And both of those guys are pretty strong riders when it comes to the 450 class, and I expect them to be right up at the front. So the only kind of weak link of Team France might be Benoit Paturel because he's the second choice for France. They were going to send Dylan Ferrandis, then Ferrandis broke his arm at the Swiss GP about 2 months ago and was ruled out for this, so they went to the reserve and got Benoit Paturel. I wrote a little bit about this on verbmoto.com. You can read some of my stories that I wrote there. But I think that the particular reason that they didn't choose Muscan at the start was they wanted to have a surefire 250 guy go. Muscan's been on a 450 all season long. He's been doing really well. I could argue that he might have been a better choice to go than probably like Gauthier Paulin in the open class. But I think France wanted to just have two regular 450 riders and a regular 250 rider. Whereas Belgium, for example, they were going to originally send Kevin Strijbos, Jeremy Van Horbeek, and Clement Desalle, with Strijbos and Desalle being the 450 riders, even though Van Horbeek was the highest finishing Belgian MXGP class rider this year with 5th. They were going to slap him back on the 250F, which they've done before and did quite well. And I think they would do that more or less because Desalle and Strijbos have been in the MXGP class for a lot longer than Van Horbeek. It was only his 3rd year this year in the 450 class, so he's still a little bit more familiar with the 250 and the 250's power, and it makes sense to drop him down. So France could have done that, excuse me, with Muscan, but they elected not to. And whether that choice will bite them in the butt, I don't know. I've always heard that the French Federation is a little bit kind of salty, I guess, at Muscan and Porcel for not staying in the GP scene, which is obviously a lot more important for the French Federation since they host a GP every year and yada yada this. So I'm not really too sure if the rumors of that are true or not. They might be, they might not be. But if they are, then it kind of makes sense why they never pick Porcel for one, even when Porcel was doing really well. I mean, they picked him one year to race in the 2011 Des Nations, but that's when he was back in Europe racing the GPs all the time. And then they've been pretty gun-shy to select Musquin to the team, but last year they were kind of forced to. Ferrandis was hurt. Musquin was almost the AMA national champion in the 250 class, so it's like, how are you not going to pick him? And they won with him last year, so maybe they'll come to their senses and start putting Musquin back on the team someday. But till then, we will just have to make do with the team that is out there. And I do think that that French team, as I said, is going to be the favorite coming into this weekend. Benoit Paturel finished third in the MX2 World Championship this year. He's very, very good. It was only his second full season in that MX2 World Championship, and he's got several years on a 250 ahead of him if he chooses to go after a world title. He'll probably lose it next year to someone like Jeremy Stewart, but he's definitely a top 3 MX2 rider in the world right now. And I think he could just probably put together a couple good scores. He might be their drop scorer. I could see him getting like an 8th or a 9th or something, and then somewhere outside of the top 10, and that outside of the top 10 finish will be their drop. And then they'd want, obviously, Fevre and Paulin to be top 5 in both of their races, and they could very likely win again this weekend, which would mean the 5th time in a row that Team USA has lost the Motocross of Nations, which, as I also wrote about on Vermoto, would be the longest slump that they've had without winning since they won the very first time way back in 1981. And before that, there had been, I don't know, the first race was in 47, so there would have been about 24 years gone by before the USA won their first time. Because back in those days, it was all the European riders. They were all the best riders in the world. And when they came over to race in the USA, all the American fans wanted to go see them because it really was watching the best in the world ride. But then the USA took over and they dominated for years and years, 14 straight from 81 to 94, and then lost to Great Britain and then put another streak together that was, I think, 8 years from 90. They won in 95 and then lost again in 01, I want to say. So Team USA definitely the dominant factor in the Motocross of Nations since 81. But as of late, it's kind of turned the tables a little bit, and the other teams are starting to catch up. Now, a few teams I think that could be interesting to watch this weekend. I touched on Belgium a little bit, but I don't think they could win this weekend, given the fact that Clement Tassal injured his knee in the qualifying race at Glen Helen, and he is now out. So they called on Brent Van Donek to fill in his role, and for some reason they kept him on an open bike, even though he is an MX2 rider, where I already mentioned that Van Horbeek was an MXGP rider this year, and they kept him on the 250 and put Van Donek on a 450. It's all kind of weird. I don't see Belgium doing awesome this weekend, enough at least to win. They could podium with that team still. It's a very good team, but a win maybe out of the question. So a team that I think could step up and surprise, maybe win if it really gets out of shape at the front of the field between the France team and the USA team, is the Netherlands. And I think they're going to go kind of under the radar into that position of a possible winning team. Obviously, when you have Jeffrey Hurlings on your team, you're going to be a contender. And when they went to Lommel in 2012 with Hurlings, he almost won both of his races. And I wrote that I think he could win both of his races this year. He will be in the open class, so he'll be race 2 and 3, which is race 2 is the MX2 open race, and then race 3 is the MXGP and open race. And I think he could win both of those races. And then his teammate in the MXGP class is Glenn Koldenhoff, and Koldenhoff just came off of his second season in the MXGP class, where I believe he came 7th in the World Championship. In his rookie season, he won a GP. I don't believe he won a GP this year, but he does have the support of Red Bull Factory KTM, and he's a really, really good rider and probably going to be a top 5 GP guy for several years to come. And I think that he could easily put together 2 top 10 finishes this week. So if you couple that with Hurlings maybe winning both motos, you only need one solid ride out of Brian Bogers in the 250 class, and Bogers again finished 6th in the MX2 World Championship this year, so he's a very good 250 rider, the best that the Netherlands could definitely put out right now. and that team could impress. I really think that they have a shot at definitely a podium, if not sneaking up there and challenging for the win if they get some really good rides out of Koldenhoff and Bogerst. A couple Hurling's really good rides that he'll definitely have on the weekend. And so I would watch out for the Netherlands. I'd also watch out for Great Britain. They have Simpson, Searle, and Anstey going, which is the best choices they had at the moment, with Dean Wilson still coming back from his torn ACL this year. They sent Wilson last year, but Searle was hurt, so they had to. And this year, Searle, Simpson, and Anstey are all healthy and ready to go. And that's definitely the best team that Great Britain could field. So whether they end up winning or not, I don't see that happening necessarily. They're a good team, but they're not a team that is putting, perennial GP winners out there or anything like that. They've all won GPs, sure, but they're not a team full of week in, week out challengers necessarily. And I see them being podium contenders. They were on the podium in no, they were not. They were 4th in Latvia in 2014 with a pretty similar team, if I remember correctly. They had Wilson on that team as well. But yeah, I wrote an article, like I said, on Verb, and the possible winners that I picked out were USA, France, Netherlands, and Great Britain. Belgium could contend. I think a good day could come from Italy with Cairoli and Bernardini on the team, and they just need a good ride out of Michele Chervelin. I don't know. Going to be an interesting weekend. Again, I still say France is the favorite. You put these guys on the GP tracks, and they know how to ride them a fair bit better than the USA riders know how to. And I'm almost certain in saying that none of the USA riders have ever ridden at Maggiora before, whereas at least all of Team France and most of the other top contenders have ridden at Maggiora before. It was a GP last year in 2015, so as long as any of those guys were healthy, they had to race it, of course. And it's a very, very popular track in Europe, but when are the Americans ever going to go ride that track, because they're always training and riding in the USA? So pretty sure that none of them have ever ridden it before. The only person I could see that maybe would have rode it, but I don't understand, I guess, a reason why, would be Alex Martin, because he's gone over and raced the Motocross of Nations twice for Puerto Rico before. And so maybe, he was training for Germany in 2013 when he went, and I don't know, they went to Italy. I don't think that would have happened. Maybe 2014 when they went to Latvia, he could have gone to Italy and trained, but again, unlikely. He probably would have rode a track a little bit closer. So Webb only went last year and practiced in France, and Anderson, to my knowledge, has only ever been to Europe to race Bercy, but he could have also done Genoa or Genova or anything like that before. But either way, why would he go ride a motocross track if he's there to race a supercross event? So I'm pretty sure none of Team USA has ever seen this track before. Sometimes that's a disadvantage, sometimes maybe it's an advantage, because they can figure out things that nobody knew about the track and start riding it really well. And it wasn't a detriment at all to Team USA when they won at this same track in 1986. So I don't know. It's just one of those weekends again where you get all excited. There's a lot of hype around it, and nobody really knows exactly what to expect until the gate drops. So that's why I always really enjoy it. Is that going into it recently, at least, it's not like a clear favorite winner that you can pick out. It used to be like, oh, Team USA is ridiculous. There's no way they're going to lose this year, and they'd go smoke the field. So now that it's a little bit closer, it's a lot more interesting of an event to watch. And still, I get to cheer for Team USA, hope they win. And then if they don't, it's a good race to watch. So why not? It's a good event to watch. And I actually just found out this morning that if you live in the United States and you happen to have, I think it's called the CBS Sports Network or something, it's probably one of those crazy 1,800 something channels or whatever on your TV, they will actually be playing the race live in the United States. So if you don't have a subscription to MXGP TV like I do, then you can watch that race. And I think it'll be on at 4 a.m. on the Pacific, so 7 a.m. on the East Coast. And yeah, you guys should watch it. If you have never watched a Motocross of Nations before, it is a must-see, and if you've never been to one, I've always heard it's a must-go, and it's going to be at Glen Helen next year, so I am definitely going. and I hope that it sparks off a stern interest in going in the future for me, because I'd love to go see some of the Motocross of Nations in Europe. The fans there are ridiculous. Last year at Ernée, they packed them 60, 70,000 full on a hillside in the French Riviera, and this year I'm sure they're going to be just as strong in Italy. And the Italians love their motocross, especially Antonio Cairoli, so it's going to be loud this weekend, that's for sure. But not much more I can say about it other than I hope you guys watch it, and I hope you guys also enjoyed this video of me talking about the 2016 FIM Motocross of Nations. Just a quick shout out to the stuff that I'm wearing. It's a Team USA jacket that was created by somebody on the forums. I will be sure to include a link in the description so you guys can download that if you want. I'm also wearing a Team USA Shoei helmet. Again, somebody else made it. Don't remember who they are, but I'll include a link in the description and a download and give them credit, of course, and all that stuff like that. So if you guys want to run that stuff and look cool, that's how you're going to do it. But thanks for watching Track Walk episode number 96, the 2016 Motocross of Nations in Maggiora, Italy discussion. As I said, if you guys like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be sure to get back to you with any of your questions or concerns as fast as we possibly can. And you guys have a good weekend. Hope you enjoy watching the Motocross of Nations. So long for now.